Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Howdy, folks. Interesting. Who would be Tsar of Russia today? Romanov family tree. Let's do it. I'm interested to see how it connects into the British royal family, because I know I call them doppelgangers. Tsar Nicholas and King George the fifth, third. King George, King George and Tsar Nicholas looked very much alike, and I know that they were related in some way, and I'm interested to see that. And just overall, I'm curious. Let's go. My name's Connor. Hi, I like to learn things. Original link, top of the description. Discord link below that. Love to have you. If you are not ready to learn, home ec is down the hall. You are in the wrong class, my friend.
Today, I'm going to explore the question, who would be Tsar or Emperor of Russia today if Russia decided to restore the Romanov monarchy?
Sorry, guys, that was really loud.
Interestingly, this is not an easy question to answer. So I'll actually be presenting you with 6 different possible candidates. And then at the end, just for fun, I'll give you my opinion on who I think has the best claim.
Phenomenal channel. Hope you're all doing well.
So the last Tsar of Russia was Nicholas II from the House of Romanov. He reigned from 1894 to 1917, when he was forced to abdicate during the Russian Revolution. Technically, his brother Michael was Tsar for about a day at this point before he then declined.
Forced to abdicate. So he was killed. Him and his family were killed after he abdicated. So they were killing. I should know this. I probably heard it in a different video, but I'm slow. Okay. Okay. I thought they might have been in power at the time of being slaughtered.
Declined to formally Tsar for about a day at this point before he then declined to formally during the Russian Revolution. Technically, his brother Michael was Tsar for about a day at this point before he then declined to formally accept the title. And speaking of titles, I should point out that the Russian Tsars were actually emperors, although really the two terms were of equivalent rank.
Doesn't it mean, like, did I hear this somewhere? Like it has a relation to Caesar, like Tsar,
and are often used interchangeably. The word Tsar, after all, being derived from the word Caesar. But the main thing you need to know is that in the year 1917, Russia ceased to be a monarchy. And then in the year 1918, Nicholas II, his wife, his 4 daughters, his 14-year-old son Alexei, his brother Michael, and several other members of the extended Romanov family were all executed. By that point, Russia had become a socialist republic, and by 1922, it was the main part of the USSR, also known as the Soviet Union. That state lasted until 1991, and by 1922, it was the main part of the USSR, also known as the Soviet Union. That state lasted until 1991, when Russia became known as the Russian Federation, which is what it is called today. But let's say Russia wanted to restore the Romanovs to the imperial throne and become a monarchy again. Who would they choose to wear the crown? Well, first of all, you need to know 2 important things about Russia's laws of succession. First, only children born from a non-morganatic marriage are eligible. Generally speaking, a non-morganatic marriage is a marriage between 2 nobles, whereas a morganatic marriage is a marriage between a noble and someone of a lower rank, kind of like the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge in the UK. Secondly, following the reign of Catherine the Great, it was decided that only male line members of the dynasty are eligible. Now, technically, the House of Holstein-Gottorp-Romanov would be eligible. The only exception to this would be if there were absolutely no eligible males left. So with these two rules in mind, called the Pauline rules, named after Emperor Paul I of Russia, let's now look at the family tree. First of all, there are no living descendants of Nicholas II or his brother Michael. Although there have been several impostors over the years who have famously claimed to be either Alexei, Anastasia, or some other descendant.
So we're going to have to go up the tree.
However, as it stands now, the remains of the entire family of Nicholas II have been found and DNA tested. So the myth that one of them perhaps escaped can be put to rest.
Anastasia,
Michael
no.
did have a son named George, but he died childless at age 20 and was born from a morganatic marriage anyway. Therefore, if we want to find a male line heir, we have to look further back in the tree. At the time of the Romanov family's execution, the next person in the line of succession was Grand Duke Kirill, son of Tsar Alexander III's younger brother Vladimir. During the revolution, he and his wife, who was a German princess, escaped to Finland and then later lived in both Germany and France. In 1924, he declared himself to be the guardian of the Russian throne, and then later he declared himself to be the emperor in exile. Initially, there was some dispute over this amongst the other surviving Romanovs, but eventually he was universally recognized as being the legitimate head of the house. Kirill died in 1938, and therefore at that point, the role of pretender to the Russian throne passed to his only son, Grand Duke Vladimir, who then went on to hold that role for the next 54 years until his death in 1992. And it's at that point that things got complicated. First of all, Vladimir did not have any sons. His only child was a daughter named Maria. And secondly, there was some debate over whether or not Vladimir's marriage had been non-morganatic. He married Princess Leonida from the house of Bagrationi, a very old house that had ruled in Georgia for over 1,000 years, but by that point was no longer from the house of Bagrationi, a very old house that had ruled in Georgia for over 1,000 years, but by that point was no longer reigning, as their lands had been annexed by Russia. For these reasons, Russian monarchists ended up splitting their support after the death of Grand Duke Vladimir. Some supported his daughter Maria, but others supported a man named Nicholas Romanov instead.
Guys, I would have thought that these guys would not really want to be known as these things because it would really put a target on your head from communist officials or whatever communist leader, but maybe I don't know, maybe the communist leaders didn't really care so much about these people saying they're the exiled emperors, or maybe they weren't close enough, they weren't in Russia to be killed or something, or targeted.
At that point, Nicholas a man named Nicholas Romanov instead. At that point, Nicholas was the most senior male line member of the house from a non-morganatic marriage, and also he was the president of the Romanov Family Association. When he died without sons in 2014, his claim was picked up by his brother Dmitry, who then died childless just 2 years later. At that point, in 2016, there was only one person left who could claim to be from both a non-morganatic line and from a male-only line.
Guys, this is the first time I'm hearing the term non-morganatic. or morganatic. And is that a thing in this is not the first, empire or countries, nations, family tree, royal monarch family tree I've looked at. And yet I haven't heard that term. And I'm wondering if it was also a case if you married outside of royalty, then your heir would not count. Is that?
That person was and is Andrew Romanov, who, interestingly, is also the grandson of Nicholas II's sister, Xenia. Andrew, now 97 years old, currently lives in California. His sister Olga is the current president of the Romanov Family Association. But the problem with Andrew is that he did not marry a noble, and therefore his children are not eligible to continue his claim after his death.
Isn't there also a descendant of Stalin, a woman, I forget, who lives on the West Coast as well, I think in Oregon or Washington? That's strange that both a descendant of the Romanovs and a descendant of Stalin are both currently living in the western coast of the U.S.
under the original Pauline rules, nor is anyone else. Once are not eligible to continue his claim after his death under the original Pauline rules, nor is anyone else. Once Andrew dies, there will be no person who can claim to be from both a non-morganatic line and from a male-only line. So at that point, we'll be left with a choice. Do we go with a female line that has kept all their marriages strictly within the nobility? Or do we go with a male-only line, even though some non-nobles have now entered the family tree? Of course, there's also a third possibility. We could forget about both the original rules and simply go with some other system, such as absolute primogeniture, or the person with the most current ties to Russia. Let's look at the two non-morganatic female line candidates first, because according to the original rules, they will in fact be eligible at the point when Andrew dies. I've already mentioned Maria. She has the distinction of being the child of the last undisputed head of the house, as well as being a candidate that many already support. So long as we consider her mother to have been of noble blood, she does in fact have a very strong claim.
She looks like a pretty tough lady too. She should be it.
But if we don't consider her mother to have been noble, we would then have to look elsewhere, to the next most senior line, descended from Emperor in exile, Kirill. Kirill had a daughter who married a German prince, and then their son Emek went on to marry a duchess and have a son named Karl. Karl claims that he is the rightful heir to the throne, and in fact has supported the creation of a micronation called the Romanov Empire, of which he would be the emperor, reigning as Nicholas III. He and a Russian businessman named Anton Bakov have attempted to secure several locations on which to build their new nation. So far, they've tried and failed in the Balkans, the Caribbean, the Pacific Ocean, and off the coast of West Africa. Currently, they are looking at building an artificial island in neutral Mediterranean waters,
Azores?
But have stated that they are waiting for the COVID-19 pandemic to pass before they pursue it any further.
That's going to happen.
Okay, let's now look at the most senior, non-morganatic male line. If we throw out the requirement for all marriages to be with a woman of noble rank, the most senior male line member of the House of Romanov is currently Dmitry Ilinsky, son of the former mayor of Palm Beach, Florida, Paul Ilinsky. Dmitry is an American citizen and a successful businessman. But there are two more possibilities. What if we threw out both the male-only rule as well as the non-morganatic rule and simply went with absolute primogeniture, which is the system that most European monarchies use today. Using this method, the line would pass through Nicholas II's sister Xenia and then through her firstborn child Irina. Irina married a Russian count who happened to have been involved in the murder of the famous Russian mystic Grigory Rasputin. Irina had a daughter, also named Irina, who then had a daughter named Xenia, who is currently 78 and living in Greece, along with a daughter and 2 granddaughters. So Irina is a 5th possibility.
Who's the Rostislav?
Finally, what about choosing the member of the family with the most current ties to Russia? That person would be Rostislav Romanov. He's a male line descendant, as well as a descendant from Nicholas II's sister Xenia. His father was Andrew Romanov's first cousin. He's an artist and is the only member of the House of Romanov to have lived in Russia since the fall of the empire. He currently splits his time between the UK and Russia and serves as the vice president of the Romanov Family Association and is the main representative within Russia itself. So there you have it, 6 candidates, each with a claim to the former imperial throne. Personally, I think the person with the strongest claim is the Grand Duchess Maria Vladimirovna. She fits the original rules, so long as her mother is considered to have been noble. And being that her mother was from the very ancient royal house of Bagration, I would say that she was. If we disqualify her simply because the house of Bagration is no longer ruling, then we'd have to disqualify the entire Romanov family as well. She also has the distinction of being the only child of the last undisputed head of the house, Grand Duke Vladimir. And she is the individual recognized by the Russian Orthodox Church as being the rightful heir. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with my choice and why. But before I go, I want to share with you something interesting. I myself, through my wife, actually have somewhat of a connection to the Romanov family. So here's me, and here's my wife, Charlotte. Charlotte had a great-grandfather named Isaac, who was one of the many Eastern European Jews who migrated to Ellis Island in the early 20th century. Isaac had 3 first cousins who were photographers. And not only that, they were the official photographers to the Tsar's family. Many of the photos you can find online of Empress Alexandra and her children were actually taken by them. So that's kind of cool. If you're interested in learning more about the Russian Tsars, we've got another video which covers every Tsar from Ivan the Terrible to Nicholas II.
Doing it.
You can find a link to that on screen now or in the description. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for making. Awesome video as always.
Hi, my name.
I'd like to watch this as well. Cool. I know I'm sitting weird, but it's more comfortable. Hope you're all doing well, guys. See you next time. Chin up. You'll be good soon. Don't worry. Bye.